Hi, this is Andrew, and when I was asked to do a live video, I thought for a little while about what would be interesting to people, and I'm hoping to have a few people join us. Hi, Pam. Um, and I thought about it for a little while, what I wanted to share on this video. And what I came up with actually is one of the videos that I made years ago and has been watched a lot of times on YouTube is the video that I did in a lady's house. She held the camera for me, and I showed uh, how to use the Baste feature on your Gammill or Statler machine to load the quilt layers to the canvas without pinning. Honestly, I'm not very good at pinning. My hands are too big, and I end up sticking my fingers all the time. And I also really like to use the zippered leaders. And when you zip a quilt off, if you've pinned the layers to that zippered leader, what you end up with is a real prickly mess. If you're going to try to sit down in your easy chair and do some stitching or whatever, if there's pins everywhere, the whole thing is just really dangerous. So interestingly enough, the lady that taught me how to do this is a lady that has two Statlers. She runs a quilt shop, and I was late setting up for a show. So this quilt show was going to open, and I got stuck in traffic and everything gone wrong. So I get there, I'm setting up my booth furiously. I've got 3 machines set up. I've got a Statler and an Elevate and a Vision, or maybe it was 2 Visions and a Statler. Anyhow, I'm frantically putting the whole booth together, meanwhile watching the clock and the thing's about to open. So I get the machines put together and I just start putting the fabric on when my friend she also had a booth at the show, she comes over to see how I was doing. And sweat's dripping off me. I'm just in a panic because you know at these shows, as soon as they open the doors, all the ladies come rushing in, and you have to be ready for that. So anyway, I was in a panic. So she saw my situation. She grabbed some of the pre-cut fabric and batting that I had there, and I'll tell you, she did 2 machines, start to finish, and I still wasn't halfway done pinning the one that I was working on. And so afterwards, when the show settled down and we were there for several days, I said, I need you to show me how this is done. And so she taught me, and it's something that I love with other people. And I certainly believe that you use whatever method works for you. There's a lot of people that that use pins. I think that's probably the most common. And there's grip and rod type systems like leader grips and red snappers. But there's even people that use staplers. Hi, Georgia. I see you're a stapler. I see you're here. And this method is one that just really works well for me. So I'm going to share it with you today. So let me get started. I've got 3 layers here because I personally don't. I float my quilt top. So if I did not float the quilt top, if I was going to do full load or a traditional load, I would actually attach the bottom of the quilt top to my top canvas first. But since I'm going to float the quilt top, I'm going to skip that step. But I just want you to know, if you do a full load, traditional load, at the bottom of your to that first. It's important to do it in that. So I'm going to grab my backing. It's off camera. So because of this whole social distancing thing, I get to be my own camera person. I did ask Michelle to I'm quarantined with my wife, and I did ask her if she got a chance, if her other meeting finished soon enough, maybe she could come be my camera person. But you know, everything's different with this social distancing, and you got to figure out new ways to do things. So I've got my backing here, and like everybody does, I'm going to find the center, okay, by folding it in half. And because because I would lose it real quickly, I'm just going to do a little snip. I don't know if you can see this. I'm just going to do a snip on the corner. That leaves me with a little V in the fabric. Yep, you can see that. So I'll do that on the top and the bottom of the backing. You ever notice that your hands shake when you're nervous? It makes things harder. All right. And there's my second snip. So I'm going to move the camera in so we can see a little better what I'm going to be doing. Pardon the camera shake here. All right. So I have a method here where I use one pin, a single pin, and right here on my canvas, I've got a center mark. I'm afraid you're not going to be able to see that. You're just going to have to take my word for it that I am pinning it to right where the center is. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move that over a little bit. And this one pin is all I'm going to need. So I'm going to bring my machine over here. Now, I'll show you in a couple minutes how it is that my canvas is holding up here by itself. That's something I did in advance. So the machine I have here is a Vision, and I've got a channel lock, and I'm going to lock my horizontal channel lock. And I'm going to bring up my bobbin with a single stitch. Oh, good, you can see. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 stitches that are about 1/4 inch apart or less. And now I'm going to go ahead and start the basting function. And I have mine set at 3/4 of an inch. When I'm on a Statler, it forces me to choose between 1/2 and 1. And I usually go with the 1 inch. But because I'm on a Vision 2, I have the option of 3/4. So I'm going to start stitching. And because it's in a baste mode, it's going to take a stitch every 3/4 of an inch. And you do have to be a little bit careful with this because right now the machine is on, and if you stuck your fingers in there and started fiddling with stuff and bumped it, it could fire off a stitch. So you got to keep in mind whether it's on or off. And what I'm doing is I'm taking about 8 or 10 inches of fabric and I'm pinching between the canvas and the fabric. And so I'm going to go ahead and restart here. And so basically, I have an automatic pinning machine. So I grab about 8 inches and I roll the machine. Anybody who wants to can start a timer, but I'm willing to bet that I can load this a heck of a lot faster than anybody with a set of pins. And it's really easy to get it straight too. The line of stitching does not need to be straight. As long as you're holding your fabric straight along the edge of the canvas. Now at the end, I'm going to hit my stop button, and then I'm going to take 1, 2, 3 more stitches to go ahead and lock it into place. Those basting stitches will pull out really easily, so you need to make sure that they're locked at both ends. I'm going to cut my threads, and I'm going to come back to the center and go the other direction. The hardest thing about learning to do this is figuring out where to put your hands to hold things. And the first 2 or 3 times that I did this, I did feel super awkward. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing, just like a lot of other things in life. But I got better at it over time. So I want to give you a trick for the second half. I'm going to set my channel off again, so now the machine again is only going right and left. And my trick here is that it's really important overlap. It's just basting, and we're going to pull the basting out. So there's my single stitch. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and that's enough to hold it. Now I'm going to pull out my pin, and you can see why I overlap. That's my pin holder, the foam handle grip right there. And you can see why I overlap. I don't have to hold anything. The fabric is all in place when I got started again. So again, I'm pinching my middle fingers underneath the canvas, and then my thumb is on top, and I'm holding that fabric right where I want it to be. So I'll just hit start and roll the machine. And some people, when they're first learning how to do this, they hit the stop button every time they stop. I don't do that. I just pause, and I know the machine is going to pause with me. So here it is. I'm going to run it on out to the end. And if you try to take a big bite like I did there, rather than doing 8 inches at a time like I said in the instructions, what you're going to find is what I had happen right here, where it's actually it's not right along where it should be. So don't rush it too much. Take 8 or 10 inches at a time, and then you'll get it perfectly straight. It's a huge time saver anyway. You don't need to set extra couple seconds. So you run it on out to the end, stop, 1, 2, 3, and undo the channel lock. And I usually don't bother to bring the threads up. I just come off to the corner where I can reach them, and I cut them right there. So now that the top of the backing is loaded, I'm going to go ahead and roll up the backing on a quilt. And I'm going to move this back. Yeah, that's good enough. All right. There's a little trick here I can show you. Not everybody knows this one. If you take one of your canvas leaders and bring it up and over your belly bar and lock it here, it's like having a helper in your quilt room. Because when you go to roll this backing up, this canvas is going to give some extra resistance. And it'll straighten out the wrinkles on my backing. So if I bring that canvas up over the belly bar here, and that bar is now locked, now when I go to roll this backing up, there's going to be a little bit of drag against that canvas. Look at how all those wrinkles just disappear. Can I get some thumbs up for that trick? Oh, nobody's watching anymore. I'm kidding. So the way I was able to stitch onto the canvas and not have it moving out from under me is that I use the Velcro clamps. So I'm going to put the clamp on this corner of the canvas, but instead of pulling it straight over, I'm going to pull it at an angle. And that's going to hold the canvas for me so that I can baste it. That's the little trick. And I obviously did that for the top as well. So strangely enough, on this machine, the center has not been marked on this canvas. So I am going to just guess it. I didn't realize until just now that the center was not marked. And I'm dangerous with a pin. Listen to get bloody. Come on, there we go. So you want to make sure to leave yourself a little bit of slack in the fabric. So, and I'll show you why here in just a second. I almost unthreaded my needle. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay. So if you have a little bit of slack in your fabric and in the leader, you can actually move it underneath where the machine is locked. And so that way I can kind of choose where my line of stitching goes. Okay. It's 1/2 of the bottom of the top or bottom of the back done. I'll come back here. Like I said, it's a good idea to overlap. 1, 2, 3. Pull out the pin because we need it. Now, I'm probably the least likely person ever to press a backing. And because I don't like taking time to press backing, loaded in this order on purpose. I'll show you what I mean here in just a second. I'm going to drop the clamps. And I'm going to go ahead and roll it back. And when I roll it back, I'm just going to hold a little bit of tension on this big handle up here. And that way I can pull it out of the backing by keeping a little bit of tension on it. Okay, so there we go. Now, all of you have done there. You've thrown the batting on here, and then you throw a quilt top on. I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. For any that are new to the process, so this is considered flip because only the backing is attached to the canvas. So now I've got my batting in place. I didn't have a quilt top for this video, so we're just going to pretend. Then we take our quilt top and place it on here. like so. That's just a random piece of fabric, actually. Okay. And then what I would do is I would baste around the top sides of the quilt, the area that's visible here. Then to control the rest of the quilt top, I use the quilt lips. I don't know if most have these lips, but while your layer's loaded, you've got control on the sides and the top where you've basted. But unless you're basting the entire quilt where you start, you don't have any control over the fabric pulling up center. And what it ends up is you get to the bottom of the quilt, and instead of being straight across, you're having kind of a frown on the bottom of the quilt where you lumber on the left side, right side, and shrunk up in the center. And so you need to control the stretch from the middle of the quilt the same way that you do by basting the top and the sides. So these clips are great. You basically just snap them on. And they'll keep it from shrinking up. So the one last thing I want to show you guys before I go is how easy it is to take the quilt off after you've basted it. So let's say we're completely done with the quilt. And it's time to take off the frame. I think this is my favorite part of the whole thing. When you unpick it, you want to do it from the bobbin side. All right, I'm sure you can't see it really well because I have a green thread against the white here. But where my center is, I'm going to go ahead and just pull. I broke the green thread right there. And then over here on the side where I took my extra walking stitches, I'm going to pick that out. And normally, oh, you can't see, it's off camera. Let me do it from the center. Where did I break it? Right here. Normally, if you use a slippery thread like a trilobal polyester, I'll use Glide or Magnifico or Fantastico, one of those shiny threads in the bobbin. And Basting is a great way to use threads that you don't need anymore, partial bobbins, that kind of thing. But I'm just grabbing this thread and pulling. And most of the time, I can get that whole row out. Come on now. Ah, it broke. Just like when you ask a dog to perform a trick range and he says, no, not this time. So I'm going to grab that thread, pull it, and usually the whole thing will come out, except for now, because I'm on Facebook Live. You can also, there we go, come on now, come on. You can pull the whole thing out most of the time. Depends on how wide the quilt is. Now I'm getting nothing but shreds. If you get frustrated, you just rip it off. But I like to do that because it leaves you with little shreds. Little shreds of thread. I might have more luck coming this direction. It's usually quite impressive because you can see, oh, there we go. You get a whole big piece out all at once and it comes off in 2 long threads. So I hope you find this a useful trick. I would encourage you. Let me get to the other side of it. You can see my belly. I would just encourage you that if you want to try this, commit to using it for 3 quilts. And I guarantee you, by the time you've used it 3 times, you will find that it's a huge time saver. Thanks so much for joining us. And this is Andrew with Gammill. Have a great quarantine.